So if you look at the top of both of your sheets, I would put them side by side if I were you. At the top of the steps one, it says turning a decimal into a fraction, and then at the top of the example sheet, it says turning a decimal into a fraction. So you know those are the same thing, okay? So go ahead and copy this down. At the top of your steps sheet, it should say 1, 2, and 3. Underneath, turning a decimal into a fraction. So go ahead and take like a minute and a half and jot that down, please. I think I told you to give Taylor a sheet, but I didn't give her one. So yesterday we learned how to turn a decimal into a fraction. Today we're going to learn how to turn a fraction into a decimal into a percent into a decimal, a percent into a fraction, and a fraction into a percent. I know that sounds like a whole lot, but almost all of them only have one step, okay? I think it's pretty easy. I think it's easy content, but Mr. McFarland and I were talking earlier, we both agreed that without like our note sheet, without all of the steps right in front of us, neither of us really remember how to do it. Because there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 different things you're going to have to know how to do. And it's like impossible to remember. So please, again, make sure you use your notes when you're doing your homework, when you're doing your quiz, and your test at the end of the triad. Also tomorrow, you're going to take a quiz, but it's going to only be over what you learned yesterday, okay? So it's not any of this new content today. You eventually will be quizzed over that, but it's not tomorrow. So as long as you've got that opener, that information like in your head and you know what you're doing, you'll be set for tomorrow. And I should have mentioned that the quiz looks exactly like today's opener, okay? Okay, are we good? No? Okay, one more minute. You did. You did write it yesterday. The reason you're writing it again today is so, since there are 6 different actions here, you have all of them on the same page. Did everybody hear that? Sean said we wrote these steps down yesterday, which is true. I didn't write the note page myself. I don't know if I would have done it that way, but you're writing it again so that you have every action outlined on one paper, so you don't have to go through all your notes and find how to do it. Okay. Almost there? If you're not there, go ahead and look at yesterday's notes, okay? So this is just like the opener. The first step is determine the place value of the last digit in the decimal. 4 is the last digit. And Kaylin, can you tell me the place value of that 4? Yeah. Very good. Man, my handwriting was awful first hour. It's worse right now. And then Tamara, what do I do after that? Perfect. Okay, and the third step? Anybody? Reduce. Nice. So I know I told you over and over yesterday that you can use your calculator to figure out what this answer is. You can use that fraction button, which I still recommend doing, but you do have to show what you did. So you still have to write divided by 2 equals, and then your answer, okay? So you can punch 204 divided by 2 into your calculator and put that answer there, okay? Which should be 102, right? And then 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. That can be reduced again by 2. 102 divided by 2 is 51. 500 500 divided by 2 is 250. Can that be reduced anymore?
No.
How come?
There's nothing going to it.
Nothing can go into it. So it can only either be reduced by 2 or 5. 2 or 5 does not go into 51, right? It has to be an even number if 2 goes into it, and it has to either be a 0 or a 5 if a 5 goes into it. So box in your answer. Okay, example number 2. I'm going to speed through this since we just did it on the opener. I'm going to underline the 0. Jalen, what place value is the 0? Bless you. Hundredths. Nice. So then I'm going to write my fraction. Sean, what's my fraction going to look like?
50 over.
What is it?
50 over 100.
It's going to be 150 over 100. So it's going to be 150 on the top because we're writing the decimal without the decimal point. So you just block that out, okay? And put that as your numerator. Now, every time you can reduce, it is divisible by 2 or 5. There's a way bigger number that goes into this that would cut out all those extra steps. It's 50. So if we were to do divided by 50, we would get 3 over 2. And that's the answer, but I'm going to do it the way that I taught you. But when you're doing your homework and you can do what you want, you still have to show your work, but you can put bigger numbers in as long as you're positive that the one number goes into both, okay? So I'm going to do 5 and 5. 150 divided by 5.
30.
30? Yes. Sorry. Brain fart. And 100 divided by 5?
20.
20. And right there, whenever we see a 0 on top of a 0 like that, we can just cross out like that, right? Have you learned that in math class before? You've seen that before? Okay. That's a quicker way of doing it. And then 3 over 2 is the most reduced you can get. Annette, can you see okay over there? You can scoot over a seat if you want, if it's better for you. Okay. Go ahead and get that steps note sheet out. And then write this in. Divide the numerator by the denominator. So when you're turning a fraction into a decimal, you divide the numerator by the denominator. And that's exactly what you already know how to do. That fourth step, when you're changing a decimal into a fraction, when we check, you instead of writing the fraction into your calculator, like on the last one, it was 3 over 2. In your calculator, you would put 3 divided by 2, and then you'd get a decimal. And that's all this one is. This is basically the checking step of the last thing we learned how to do. Okay? I think this is the easiest one. Divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, example 3. And so, when you're showing this on your worksheet, because we will have homework tonight, unfortunately, it's due Monday though, so it's okay. Your worksheet from yesterday is due tomorrow, but the worksheet from today is due on Monday, so don't stress about it. I told first hour the wrong thing, so they're going to work extra hard tonight, which is good. Mm-hmm. Yep. And Morgan's hugely ahead of the game. Okay, so when you're doing this, we know that when we see a fraction, 4 over 5 means 4 divided by 5, right? We know the fraction bar means division. So even though you all know that, I still need you to write out 4 divided by 5 and then equals. And someone punch that into their calculator for me. 4 divided by 5. Andy. 0.8? Nice. And then box in your answer. Does Is that easy or what? I think it's easy. Okay, example number 4, same thing. Go ahead and write that equals 21 divided by 25.
We're gonna go all the way to example 12.
Mm-hmm. Someone punched 21 divided by 25 into their calculator. John, what'd you get?
0.84.
Right, 0.84. And that's it. So make sure you have your calculator with you. I know everyone's cell phone has a calculator on it, right? But that nice calculator from Mrs. Lidekin, it has those fraction buttons and the conversion buttons. So I would use that if you want. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Can I move on? So this is converting a fraction into a decimal, okay? When it says convert fraction to decimal, you know that your answer needs to be a decimal. When it says convert a decimal to a fraction, you know it has to be in fraction form, okay? Okay, percent means out of 100. Go ahead and fill those blanks in. Out of 100. Where do you see percentages a lot? Like today, you probably saw one, didn't everyone?
30% off, like sales.
Sales, definitely. Where else? Grocery store. What kind of other category though? Didn't you get your progress reports today?
Yeah.
All of your grades are in percentage form. Right. So, I should have written that for you. Percent means out of 100. Okay? So, say that Kaylin has a 95% in this class. Okay? Actually, not in this class. Let's say you got a 95% on the test. Okay? That test we just took. But our test was out of 140 points. So when we say out of something, we mean a fraction like that, right? If Kaylin got 70 out of 140 of the test problems correct, he got 70 out of 140 points. That's actually a 50%. That's an F. Which that's not what Kaylin got. Don't worry about it. But when we are converting a fraction into a percent, it's out of 100. Because if he got everything right, he would have gotten 100%, right? But this is a 50% because 70 is half of 140. Which is like doing this, okay? And then that's equivalent to 50%, which you don't need to write this. I'm just trying to give you a better understanding of what out of 100 means. But do write out of 100, okay? All right, so when we're turning a decimal into a percent, again, this is really easy too, I promise. I know it's a lot of words and it looks like a lot of steps, but it's only like 1 or 2 steps per action. All you have to do to turn a decimal into a percent is multiply the decimal by 100. So that's the only step that you have to do. Make sure you write this in your notes as well. Write everything that's right here. Multiply by 100. Or move the decimal 2 places to the right, and then don't forget the percent sign. So when you get your answer, after converting a decimal into a percent, you have to write the percentage sign at the end in order for your number to be correct. Okay? So I'll talk about it more when we get to the example. Have you done conversions like these before?
Yes.
Middle school, right? You did it in middle school? That's when I did it. So you can either multiply the decimal that you have by 100, or you can simply move the decimal point twice to the right. So if my decimal is 0.36, okay, we can either multiply by 100, and if you put that into your calculator, you're going to get 36, and then you have to remember to write your percentage sign. Or, when you have the same decimal, this one says, or move the decimal 2 places to the right. I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to drag it like this. 2 places to the right. Like that. And then the decimal goes here, and that is the same as 36%. Okay? And the reason we move twice to the right like this, if you look at yesterday's notes, when we had all those blanks and the place values and everything, if we start with the decimal point, right here is the 10th place, right? Morgan, can you put your head up? Right here's the 10th place, and right here is the 100th place. So when we're multiplying by 100, we have to put it by that behind the 100th place. Okay? What's up, Samara? The number of zeros. Yeah. So there are 2 zeros in 100. There's a few ways of looking at it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Okay. So because there are 2 zeros in the 100, you move twice, and that changes the decimal point. Same idea. Can you get it from Kaylin? Or I'll catch you up at the end? Okay. All right. So, now, when you're doing your homework, you only have to do this once. Okay? You don't have to do it both ways. But when we're doing the notes, I want you to do it both ways so that you have the option later. And you can do whichever way works best for you. So, if we're changing this decimal into a percent, I'm going to multiply by 100. And Jonathan, can you punch that into your calculator? 0.24 times 100? $24. Yep. And then, what was that little note that we need to remember after we've got the answer? You should have it written in your notes. No, Andy?
Always write the percent.
Always write the percent sign. Yep. Tamara, I'll ask you for help in just a second. So your answer is 24%. And remember, because percent means out of 100, this is 24 out of 100. That's kind of comparable. Where do you hear cent?
In money.
In money. So there's 100 cents in a dollar, right? So 1 cent is 1 out of 100. So this is kind of like, or it's exactly like 24 out of 100. So 24% and then the number 24 by itself are totally different things. This is like 24 pennies, and this is like $24. So it's a big, big difference. Okay? And then, Tamara, what was that other way of doing it? 2 times to the right. So I'm going to take that decimal point, move it twice to the right, and then that equals the same thing, 24. And then what? Percent. Nice.
That's not I remember in my 7th grade.
So I do want you to have both ways written in your notes, okay, Jalen? I want you to have both ways written in your notes, times 100, and when you move the decimal point. Again, when you get to homework and other things, quizzes and whatnot, don't write both. Just write whichever works best for you. Okay? Okay, example 6. So I have to multiply by 100, right? That's like the only step. Or the decimal point. I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 100 first. 1.5 or 1.5 times 100. That is 150%. Andy, were you going to help me on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Okay, help me out in just a second, okay? Alright, so when you punch that into your calculator, this is what you'll get. Or, I start with the decimal.
Yeah.
And what, John?
You move over twice.
Twice to the right. Yep. So I'm going to put a 0 there and the decimal point there. Yep, just like, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then my answer equals 150%. Same thing. Am I going too fast for anybody?
No.
Is it making sense? Right side of the room? You're getting it too? Sorry, it's kind of quiet over here. I'm going to call on you next time, okay? Okay, now we are turning a percent into a decimal. Go ahead and copy this down. This is the opposite of what we just did. Right before this, we turned a decimal into a percent. Now we're doing the opposite. So when we were turning a decimal into a percent, we had to multiply by 100, right? Did I say that correctly? A decimal into a percent, you multiply by 100. Now if we're doing the opposite, a percent into a decimal, what do you think we'll do? Hey, John.
The king has arrived.
We are, we're right here. Okay, John? I'll catch you up afterward, okay? But we're right here. So if we had to multiply by 100 last time, what do we do this time? Without looking at the screen. Kaylin, what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. Thank you, Sean. Yeah. So since we're doing the opposite action up here, we're doing the opposite math function here. Okay? And again, you do not have to memorize this. Don't be overwhelmed by all this information. You don't have to memorize any of it because you can have all of it, all of your notes on every assessment you do. Okay? And then, since when we did the opposite last time and we moved the decimal twice to the right, this time we're going to move it twice to the left. Okay? So for example 7, we're turning a percent into a decimal. So I'm going to take 40, make sure you write this down, 40 divided by 100. Annette, can you punch that into your calculator and tell me what you get? 0.4, yeah. So that is the answer. Sorry, Andy. And then the other way of doing it is moving the decimal twice to the left. So if the decimal is here, if the decimal isn't given, it's always way over here, okay? So I'm going to move twice to the left, right there. So then my answer is 0.4 again. Now I know that there's no 0 right here, but I don't want your answer should not look like this, okay? It needs to have a 0 in front of it, just like that. Okay, same thing this time, different number. Morgan, what do we do?
Divided by.
Mm-hmm.
10. No.
By 100. So if you guys couldn't hear Morgan, because I hardly could, you take this number, 3.7, divided by 100. So I know we're converting from a percent to a decimal right now. This already is a decimal, I know that. But percentages can be presented as decimals, okay? Does that make sense? Like if Sean got 132 out of 140 on his test, he very well could have had like 70, no, it would be higher than that. It could be like 85.6%, okay? A nice B, right? So it's okay to have decimals in your percentages. So, Andy, you want to punch this into your calculator for me?
Okay. I already did that.
3.7 divided by 100? What is it?
0.037.
Nice. Yep. Or we can write it down here and move twice to the left, right? And I'm going to throw a 0 in there. So when you move twice to the left over here, whoa, like this, this space right here above this little loop is going to be filled in by a 0. And then you put the decimal there. And then remember to always have a number in your ones place. This is the ones place. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the ones place. There always needs to be a number in the ones place. Sorry.
What was the?
Okay, go ahead and copy this part down to the next one.
Was that the same thing?
Same
again?
thing, yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. Sorry, it's kind of long notes today, so I'm trying to go fast.
I was in a meeting, so that's why I wasn't here.
Do you have a note attached?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Go ahead and copy this down. Originally, we were supposed to do half of these notes today, half tomorrow, and then review on Monday and quiz on Tuesday. But instead, we're doing all the notes today and quiz tomorrow. Huh? All that pressure? But tomorrow's quiz is over what you learned yesterday, which you've already mastered, right? Yeah. And the opener tomorrow.
I placed on my thing that told me I was in there, right where the guy sells snacks, like right on his desk.
Okay.
So it's down there.
Who was the meeting with?
It was my mom. It was like discussing my grades and
Okay.
other stuff.
Okay. Cool. I just need to spark the teacher, whomever you were with.
You can spark Miss Coke if you want to.
Coke.
She was in there.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Not that I don't trust you, but we gotta have proof from everybody. Okay. Does everyone have this down?
No, I don't.
Not yet? Okay. Jalen, do you have this down? Gotta wake up. Can you keep your head up without the help of your hand? Thank you. Right there, turning a percent into a fraction. You gotta catch up, okay? I bet John's probably nice enough to let you look at his notes. Okay, so when we turn a percent into a fraction, you have to write a fraction with the percent in the numerator and 100 in the denominator, which is kind of like what we did at the beginning when we have the decimal, and you put the decimal without the decimal point as the numerator, and then your place value as the denominator. This is easier because every time the denominator will be 100. Because remember, percent, and you have this in your notes, percent means out of 100, right? And so whenever we say out of something like a number out of another number, it's like this, right? Out of 100. And then always reduce. Okay. So, if we're doing that, I'm going to put equals. I'm going to take the number given, put it as the numerator. And then what's my denominator? Okay, and this can be reduced, right? By what? 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. And 100 divided by 5 is 20. Good, Morgan. And 7's a prime number, so it cannot be reduced, right? Okay. Okay, example 10. Jalen, I can catch you up at the end, okay? Or John can be a nice guy. Okay. Kaylin, what's my numerator? You should know, you just wrote down what it is. Hold on, I'm asking Kaylin. I know why you said that though. So, write a fraction with the percent in the numerator, right? So what number is the percentage? 72, right. And then, Jalen, what's the denominator? 100. Yep. I'll take it. Thank you. Thanks. There you go. Okay, so what's wrong with this? We can't stop here, right?
gotta do?
You gotta reduce it.
Reduce it. That's what you were going to say, right, Jalen? What's 72 divided by 2?
That's like
30 what? 36. 100 divided by 2 is 50.
I mean, no.
And that can be reduced again. And then we're done here. Okay? I know that 18 can be, it's divisible by 2, and 25 is divisible by 5, but it has to be divisible, or both numbers have to be divisible by one number. Either 2 or 5, not both. Okay? I guess. Okay, we are almost done. One more thing. And 2 more examples. They're quick, though. Okay.
One more write down.
One more step. Yeah. Okay. What's this last one say?
Fraction 32%.
Turn a fraction into a percent. Right. Okay, so copy these steps down. In order to turn a fraction into a percent, you turn the fraction into a decimal, and then you turn the decimal into a percent. So this one, and I wouldn't call this one hard, but it requires 2 steps, 2 separate steps. The first step says turn the fraction into a decimal, which is a whole other problem of itself, right? And then you turn that decimal into a percent, which is its own thing as well. But we know how to turn a fraction into a decimal. Yeah, you do. Look, it tells you right there. Right? If your fraction's 2 over 3, you just punch into your calculator 2 divided by 3.
It's 5.
It's 5. No.
No.
2 plus 3 is 5.
Child, be smart.
6. No.
It's like 0.77.
Oh.
No, 0.66.
You're doing a percent.
0.66, yeah. You were doing multiplication and division. Hmm? Well, we're not doing the example yet. I said 2 over 3.
Oh.
It should be 0.66 repeating, I think. Okay, like 20 more seconds
Yeah, that's it.
to write. Okay. And then, Andy, once you get that decimal, the 0.66 repeating, then you turn that into a percent by multiplying it by 100, which we already know how to turn a decimal into a percent, right? We multiply by 100. Or we just move that decimal point. It is a lot of steps, Tamara, but we've got all of the instructions right there. Your homework is going to look exactly like your note sheet. I already told you that. Morgan already did it. The homework is set up just like the notes in the worksheet. Let's see your notes. I came here this morning. Oh, sorry. So this is the homework. And you look, it says convert each decimal into a fraction. Your notes, it says the same thing, turn a decimal into a fraction. Step by step. You just have to read this part, the instructions. You see that part here? And you match it with this part. Okay? Last 2 examples. Okay. So what's the first step in changing a fraction to a percent? We just talked about it. You have it written down. You divide it by turning it into a decimal. So you're both right. Good job. So I'm going to write 3 divided by 4. And make sure you do write this part down. I know that the fraction bar means division, but I want to know that you know what you're doing. What's 3 divided by 4?
0.75.
0.75. And then we multiply that by 100. Or you can just move the decimal point twice to the right. And what does that equal? It's 75 what? If we're changing into a percent, a fraction into a percent, what's this last answer going to look like?
35%.
75%. Don't forget your percentage sign. And box it in. You do not have to write both of these. You do not have to move this and write times 100. It means the same thing. I just did that for your visual understanding, okay? Are we good? Can we do the last one? No?
I mean, yeah.
That's good because I'm at like 4% on the iPad. Okay. You mocking me?
No.
Okay. John, can you tell me what to do here? This John number 2.
She's saying Pablo.
Pablo, that's right. Can't use last names while that's recording. I know. It's Pablo.
7 divided by 8.
Perfect. And what is 7 divided by 8? Anybody who's got their calculator ready? 0.875. Nice. And then, John, what's my last step?
Can do that weird
Mm-hmm.
W thing.
You can call it that. So you can either move the decimal twice to the right, and then what's our percentage going to look like? Hold on. If our decimal's right here, we're going to forget about this 0.
It'll be 87.5%.
0.5 what? Percent. Perfect. Perfect. So, for people who want to multiply by 100 instead of moving the decimal, which you can write 0.875 times 100, and you'll get the same thing when you punch that into your calculator. Okay? All right. Does anyone have any questions? Everyone's good? Okay. So the homework, like I said, is